Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to the Egyptian Vulture Online Conference 2022. I'm Jenny Weston and I'm the RSPB's Life Egyptian Vulture Project Officer and lead for the conference working group. I am delighted to be able to welcome you to the first day of our conference. We will be hearing about work from across the range of the Egyptian Vulture in the next 2 days. Although it would be fantastic to all be in the same place to hear the talks and have discussion, I don't think we would have the sheer breadth of speakers and talks we have ahead of us if we were meeting in person. With over 60 speakers from 26 countries, this is a truly global event. Before we start the main event, though, there are a few bits of key information on how the conference will run, which I will take you through before we get to the more interesting content of the day. As with all online events, the event is reliant on technology. So if there are any technical issues today, please be patient with us as we sort these out. Firstly, Google Chrome is the recommended browser for EventShare, which is hosting this event. This short video shows how to turn on closed captions should you need it. Captioning may also be available in the advanced settings of other browsers too. If you have any technical issues throughout the day, please use the little red support icon at the top of your screen. There's a team on standby to help you, but please check first that you're using Google Chrome or Edge Chromium, as these offer the best experiences in EventShare. You will only be able to use your video and microphone when in the roundtable session later today, so for the rest of the day, there are a number of ways to get involved. The discussion box at the bottom of your window is designed specifically for conversation amongst conference attendees. We won't be able to answer questions for speakers here, though. All of our talks have been pre-recorded, and at the end of each session, we will take questions for our speakers in the live question session. You can write your questions in the live Q&A box, so please make sure to post questions here for our speakers. You can also like any of the questions already submitted, and we will try to answer the most popular ones. Please continue to be respectful to one another in the discussion forum. Any difference of opinion should be healthy debate and not arguments. In between the conference sessions, you will return to your timeline. On that homepage, you will see on the top right, we have a resource library, which has links to videos and documents from the Egyptian Vulture New Life project for you to enjoy at your leisure in the breaks. At the close of the conference, we will announce the winner of a special award in memory of our colleague and friend, Nick Williams. To be eligible for the award, speakers had to come from low, lower middle, or upper middle income countries and presented a well-written abstract covering well-defined gap in vulture conservation or research. The judging team were also keen to see the conservation benefit resulting from the work. This conference is hosted as part of the Egyptian Vulture New Life project, funded by the LIFE programme of the European Commission, and our project comes to an end at the end of this year. This ambitious project has worked in 14 countries with 22 partners along the Balkan population flyway. You will hear a lot about the many achievements of this project in the next 2 days, but we also wanted to provide a platform for the huge variety of research and conservation which is happening across the range of this globally endangered species. By gathering so many passionate people together, we hope to provide opportunities for cooperation across the range to conserve this enigmatic species. To start the day and the conference, we will learn more on the current status of the Egyptian vulture in Europe and Africa, as well as some of the projects underway to conserve the species on these two continents. I am delighted to introduce our first speaker, Vladimir Dobrev, who will tell us about exciting news from Bulgaria. Don't forget to pop any questions into the Q&A box to be asked at the end of the session. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, my name is Vladimir Dobrev and I'm Conservation Officer of the Egyptian Vulture New Life project. On the behalf of the team, I will present you now first signs of stabilization of the Egyptian vulture population in the Balkans. The Egyptian vulture population in the Balkans has been declining by about 4 to 8% per year over the past 3 decades, and with hundreds of pairs, the species numbers were only about 80 pairs in 2012, and along with the numbers, the Egyptian vulture distribution has also shrunk throughout this period, and the species remained in several main clusters among the peninsula. The main threats for the species are human-related, and namely these are poisoning, electrocution and collision, disturbance, and the illegal killing of birds. To tackle these threats and to halt the decline of the species, not only in the Balkans but beyond, on the migratory flyway and also in the wintering grounds, the Egyptian Vulture project has been operating for the last 10 years already, developing different research actions, conservation activities, and also communication. We have invested so much efforts in the last decade to reverse the trend of the Egyptian vulture in the Balkans and see some of signs of stabilization. On the first glance, seeing the numbers here on the graph up and left, you can see that in 2012 the number of breeding territories and the number of pairs is around 70, and you can see that there is decline until 2018. At first glance, this might seem really discouraging, but looking more closely into the numbers, we can see that after 2018, uh, actually the decline has been reversed, and we observe a plateau of the population and stabilization in the last 5 years, when the number of the breeding pairs and the number of occupied territories remain stable. Furthermore, except for this positive trend of the numbers in the last 5 years, we can see from the table here in the bottom that the breeding parameters of the Balkan populations are actually very good. So, in contrast to the previous periods, for the first time we see some signs of stabilization of the population. Another sign for stabilization of the Balkan population of the species that we observe in the last couple of years is hidden in the number of the Egyptian vultures counted during the annual pre-migration counts. In the last years, here on the graph on the slide, you can see that we have increased number of individuals of birds in the last several years. These are non-breeders who are actually very important for the population, as they serve as a reserve pool and fill the blanks in the pairs, and we see that their number is increasing. Another third sign of stabilization that we need to point out here is the fact that in the last year we have several birds from our restocking program that recruited in breeding territories in the Eastern Rhodops, where they were released, and actually they became part of either a breeding pair, or for the first time we also have a pair that consists of two birds that were bred in captivity and then released within our restocking program, a pair in the wild. On the top of that, we also have new occupied territories that has never been occupied before, or reoccupation of old breeding territories of the species that has not been occupied for decades. So this is another really good sign of stabilization of our population here in the Balkans, which gives us further hopes that the species returns. As a conclusion, I would like to say that we have walked a long way so far, and seeing these results for me, and I believe for everybody in our team, is really inspiring. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning. My name is Anna Cenerini. On behalf of the World Working Group, I thank the organizers for the opportunity to give this presentation, which focuses on the conservation measures implemented in Italy within the ongoing Life Egyptian Vulture project. In the red list of Italian breeding birds, the Egyptian vulture is classified as critically endangered. At the beginning of the past century, about 150 pairs were estimated in 8 Italian regions. Then the species suffered a dramatic decline, and now about 10-13 pairs are estimated. 7-9 in Sicily, 3-4 in the southernmost part of the peninsula, in Basilicata and Calabria regions. And in 2019, a new pair was discovered in Sardinia. The Egyptian Vulture project aims at implementing concrete measures to help prevent the extinction of the Egyptian vulture in Italy and improve the conservation status of the endemic subspecies in the Canary Islands. The project started in 2017 and it involves 3 Spanish beneficiaries and 5 Italian beneficiaries. E Distribuzione SPA is the coordinating beneficiary, and the other Italian beneficiaries are Federparchi Europark Italia, ISPRA, Italian Institute for Environmental Protection and Research, Basilicata region, and Puglia region. The CERM, Endangered Raptor Center Association, cooperates with the project. In Italy, the project focuses on 7 Natura 2000 sites in 4 regions: Apulia, Basilicata, Calabria, and Sicily. 5 supplementary feeding sites have been activated in the peninsula, 4 of them located near current nesting sites and 1 close to an historical nesting site. They are managed by ISPRA, Apulia region and Basilicata region, with the support of the CERM association. They are visited by breeding adults, by released captive-born individuals, and by juveniles of wild origin, and they are also visited by other scavenging raptors. One more feeding site is located in West Sicily, in a stopover site where the Egyptian vultures stay before crossing the Mediterranean Sea for reaching Tunisia. Hundreds of black kites visit this feeding site during the autumn migration, and this feeding site can mitigate possible threats in the area, such as poaching. Installation of dangerous medium voltage poles is in progress by E Distribuzione SPA in 6 project sites. At least 500 poles will be corrected by the end of the project. One of the main conservation actions is the restocking of the Italian population, which is based on the release of captive-born Egyptian vultures. The program is carried out under the coordination of ISPRA with the support of the CERM Association. Between 2017 and 2022, at the CERM station, located in southern Tuscany, 32 Egyptian vultures were born, and 25 of them were released in the period 2018-2022. These Egyptian vultures were released in Basilicata region using both the hacking and the delayed release method. A network involving Carabinieri Forestali, an expert team and many volunteers is operational in order to monitor and guard the nesting sites and the released individuals during their movements and migration. Between 2018 and 2021, 19 individuals were released. The survival rates were calculated for the period covering the post-release adaptation and the first south migration. 11 fledglings were released by hacking, and excluding 4 individuals died due to human-related causes, the 85.7% of them survived during their first autumn migration and reached their wintering grounds in Africa. Their general survival rate was 54.5%. 8 juveniles were released by the delayed release method, and they were in their second and third calendar year. Half of them survived during the first autumn migration and reached the wintering grounds in southern Italy or Africa. No human-related mortality was recorded until the end of the first autumn migration. Results show that hacking is the most successful release technique. GPS remote monitoring of the released birds enabled to ascertain 4 causes of mortality: electrocution, 2 Egyptian vultures died in Apulia; drowning, 2 Egyptian vultures; poaching, 1 Egyptian vulture was shot in Sicily and 1 more was shot in Malta Island, and 1 young vulture died due to poisoning in Tunisia. The map shows the routes of 8 released Egyptian vultures, which reached the African wintering grounds. 3 of them, in their second and third calendar year, spent their first winter in southern Italy, and 1 of them spent 2 winters in Sicily and reached Africa in the third winter after the release. Thank you and good work.
Hello everyone, my name is Mirjan Topi. I'm an ornithologist from Albania and I'm currently working at the Center Birds of Albania. I have the pleasure to make this presentation today on the status and threats for the Egyptian vulture in Albania on behalf of all my colleagues or co-authors whose names are given in this slide together with their affiliated institutions. The aim of this presentation will be to show the current status and change of the population of the Egyptian vulture that occurred in Albania in the last 15 years, and also to give information about the breeding parameters and the major threats. At first, I'd like to make a short presentation about the study area, which is situated in southern Albania, almost entirely within the wide watershed of Vjosa River, known as one of the last wild large rivers of Europe, meaning that is not yet dammed, and hopefully it will not be in the future. The area has a surface of around 5,000 square kilometers, with a very diverse relief that is dominated by mountains and hills and rather deep valleys. The climate is Mediterranean, likewise the vegetation cover, which is actually dominated by evergreen forested landscapes. Here I show 2 photographs of 2 different sites of the study area. One is showing the Vjosa River and the other one is showing the canyons of Lake Dushi, the amazing canyons of Lake Dushi found in the area of Kurvelej. Population surveys for vultures in Albania have started by Ben Hallman since 2003 and continued by him up to 2007 with some very good surveys, very good and complete surveys, particularly in years 2006 and 2007, and the data of this reports we have included and will be actually presented in the later slides of this presentation. In 2002, within the frame of the return of the Neofron Life project, the Bulgarian Society for Protection of Birds made the first expedition in Albania with some local support from the Center for the Protection and Preservation of Natural Environment in Albania, where I was actually working in that time. And an expedition was made visiting the territories of the Egyptian vulture identified previously by Ben Hallman. The expedition of 2012 actually was mostly a ground truthing and a terrain familiarizing visit, which was actually followed in 2013 by a rigorous one, where almost all the territories of the Egyptian vulture that have been reported by Ben Hallman have been visited. Surveys have continued in years 2014, 15, and so on, but not complete surveys. In this year, surveys were focused only on the occupied territories that resulted from 2013 expedition. In 2017, it was made another almost complete survey of the territories reported by Ben Hallman, and this moment actually marks the end of what I might call the second period of data gathering for the population of the Egyptian vulture in Albania, which actually is characterized by rather partial surveys, and this is particularly true when it comes to data collection on the breeding parameters of the Egyptian vulture in Albania. Later in 2018, under the frame of the New Life for the Egyptian Vulture project, we started systematic surveys in both population and breeding parameters of the Egyptian vulture in Albania. To learn about the potential threats that have been identified along the wide range of the species, and particularly on poison bait, PPNA in years 2016 and 2017 carried out 51 semi-structured interviews targeting only shepherds. Later in year 2019, Albanian Ornithological Society, which joined the research and conservation efforts for the Egyptian vulture in Albania in 2018, carried out 139 semi-structured interviews, and this time interviewing not only shepherds, but also livestock breeders and local inhabitants. And hence we made in total together a number of 190 semi-structured interviews with respondents from 77 different villages within the study area, which are actually given with the red dots over this aerial photography being showed in this slide. In order to learn whether electrocution was posing some extent of threat to the Egyptian vulture in Albania, we carried out a power line survey of 121 kilometers between 2080 to 2020. Further, in order to investigate whether the medical veterinary products would cause harm to Egyptian vulture in Albania, we carried out a structured questionnaire with livestock breeders in order to learn about their livestock veterinary care and medical products they use. So we carried out 48 structured questionnaires. This study was also followed by a desk research to see what harmful products are available in Albania and under which brands, and this was actually followed with interviews as well with veterinarian pharmacists that were operating in the area. More or less the same methodology happened for agrochemicals, but here we carried out actually a structured questionnaire as well with 37 farmers farming around the territories of the Egyptian vulture, around some of the territories of the Egyptian vulture as it is shown on this map. Results show that in 2013, around one-third of the territories that were occupied in 2006 have been abandoned. And from 2013, which actually marks the point where the conservation efforts for the Egyptian vulture in Albania started, up to 2022, the population has been almost stable as it is shown in this chart. Regarding the breeding parameters, results show that on average, in the 4 years that we surveyed about the breeding parameters, 78% of the breeding pairs managed to lay eggs, and on average almost all of them managed to hatch nearly one chick. Regarding the poison baits, from 197 semi-structured interviews carried out, the practice of using poison baits targeting large carnivores and mainly wolf, so the number of respondents that admitted to use this practice was 8.5%, whereas another 23% admitted that they have heard that this practice is used by the others, or they were aware that this practice was actually used. Regarding the electrocution, no Egyptian vultures were found electrocuted during the power line surveys, despite the presence of dangerous power lines in the area. This is actually a natural result, for my opinion, considering the high amount and availability of natural roosting site in the territories of the Egyptian vulture, and also considering that power lines are almost in all cases along the roads which are disturbed by people, and hence Egyptian vulture will not choose to roost there. Regarding the illegal killing, during our field work since 2012, we nearly never had reliable information about any case of killing Egyptian vulture in Albania. But Ben Hallman, actually along his surveys, he was told by a shepherd that once a mustached hunter, a hunter with mustache, has actually killed a pair of the Egyptian vultures in one of the territories, which should have happened around the year 2000. Regarding the veterinary medical products, the problematic pharmaceutical products are actually available for veterinary use in Albania, and also have been found available in the pharmacies that were visited. Yet, from the interviews with livestock breeders, the use of these products have not been spotted in their medical treating programs for their livestock. So what was found in the pharmacies was the ketoprofen, carboprofen, fluoxetine, diclofenac, and meloxicam. Agrochemicals used in the Egyptian vulture breeding grounds in Albania seems not to pose a threat for the species, and this is mostly related with the fact that agriculture is rather a rare activity in the area, because the agriculture fields are scarce. The main agriculture area is the Drino Valley, but there actually are cultivated crops which usually are used for livestock feed and are not treated with chemicals. So this really appeared not to be a problem or a worrying problem for Egyptian vulture in Albania. So here you come to the conclusions. Well, these are short sentences of what I explained earlier above in the results part, so probably no need to take time and re-mention these conclusions. Thank you very much for your attention.
I am Erick Kobierzycki, and with my colleague Cécile Ponchon, we are coordinators of the National Actions Plan in France. In France, it exists a small population in the south of the country. At the beginning of the 20th century, the distribution was more widespread, light green in the map. Currently, there's two distinct nucleus, North Pyrenean Mountains and Southeast Mountains, dark green in the map, with a total of 88 territorial pairs. The largest population is located in the Pyrenees, 69 this year. On the border with Spain, on the northern slope of the Pyrenees, the highest density is to the west of the massif. The density decreases from west to east, with a few pairs in the eastern Pyrenees. In recent years, a significant decrease, one pair per year for the past 10 years in the Western Pyrenees department, 43 in 2013 and 31 in 2022. This decrease is partly offset by an increase in the Eastern Pyrenean Mountains. The overpopulation is located in the southeast of the country with a Mediterranean climate. With 19 pairs this year, very fragmented, its population is certainly more vulnerable, also with various trends according to sector. In Vaucluse department, there are 10 pairs in 2011, currently only 4 pairs. In this diagram, I show you the trends of the French population. In blue, territorial pairs with an increase during the first decade of the century and then stability, maybe a slight decrease in recent years. In green, breeding pairs, during the last decade, the breeding success is variable. In red, number of fledgling, also variable, rather better in the last 4 years, because more double fledgling. Since 2002, 2 national action programs have been supported by the French Ministry of Ecology with project management. The first 5-year program extended to the next years with a live program for Southeast French population. And 2013-2024, actual 10-year program with several main objectives. A better knowledge of the population status, reduction of mortality factors, power line, poisoning, disturbances, aerial overflight, open air leisure, and evaluation and accessibility to food resources. A key action has been developed to improve both monitoring and conservation actions. Since 2019, first year of implementation of a web application developed by the Environment Administration for NAP Egyptian Vulture, NAP Birded Vulture. The geographic information system allows observers to enter their data during visits throughout the season and specifies the breeding status of each site. All nests are recorded in the GIS, and around of each nesting sites, 2 areas are defined. A core area about 600 meters around the nest without human disturbing activity, and an extended area about 1,000 meters around the nest with limited activities. These areas are considered enabled during breeding season, 1st March to 15 September, if presence of birds, or disabled if reproductive failure and or absence of birds in agreement with partners. These areas are available by web to electricity companies, forest administration, recreational sports federation, or in flight plans helicopters company, for example, after signing confidentiality clause and agreement of consideration of a sensitivity periods and commitment to avoid these enabled errors. This allows a real-time management of areas of major sensitivity. The French population certainly does not have a favorable conservation status, stable or even slightly decreasing or significantly decreasing in the areas where the population were the most dense. In the near future, among projects, We should share our samples with our Spanish and Portuguese colleagues in order to gain a better understanding of the genetic structure of the various Western populations. We should make better use of the data from the ringing program in order to determine survival rates. And we initiate studies on diet and the risk of intoxication. After this National Action Plan, we will end in 2024. Probably another NAP should be renewed, with the hope of much more human and financial resources to develop knowledge, conservation, and awareness in order to improve the situation of the Egyptian vulture in our country. Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to conference. I am Şafak Arslan from Doğa Derneği BirdLife Turkey. My talk will be on Egyptian vulture studies in Turkey today, and also during my presentation we will talk briefly summary current studies in Turkey. So let's look at situation in Turkey. Firstly, Turkey is a big country, you know, and also there are many different ecosystems and has many potential breeding and feeding areas for Egyptian vultures. It's estimated breeding population that 1,500 and 3,000 breeding pairs. But as you can see from the range, there is no detailed information, research or studies about a population estimate in Turkey. We have some works, actually, breeding studies, and you can see now on the table. And I have included last studies in the same area, same field area. And also you can see now on the map, there are actually many missing areas in breeding research. And we see that research has been done in a very small part of Turkey. Right? So another topic, migration bottleneck, sarımazı. Turkey is a important country for Egyptian vulture, not only breeding areas, but also migration routes. And there are three main migration bottlenecks in Turkey. One of them, as a blueprint. The Sarımazı village is in south of Turkey, you know, Syrian border, actually. And also we are doing counts to raptor birds every year. The first census was carried out in this village in 2014 years, and 2018, since 2018, we have been conducting a regular autumn migration monitoring study. You can see the numbers in the table now. I will links at the end of the slide for details, information, and also you can find all the data in the links. So after the research studies, let's look to conservation studies now. We have many threats in Turkey: habitat loss, electrocution and collision, poisoning, direct persecution, and we are trying to produce scientific data and reports for prevent habitat loss and explain area importance to decision makers, and also we open court cases when necessary for habitat loss. And so another threat, electrocution. Electrocution is one of the main threats to the species. In this context, we identified hazardous power lines in Mersin, Adana, and Ankara regions, which are both on migration roads and now as breeding areas. And then we isolate with electricity companies 248 electricity poles. And now it's ongoing on isolation. And another one, direct persecution. We know that were shoots at raptors in the south of Turkey, the same area, Syrian border. To prevent this, we are trying to carry out active conservation activities in the local area. We are talking face to face to local people and provide information about these birds and ecosystems, and also distribute awareness materials such as hats, glasses, posters, brochures, t-shirts as well. So another one, poisoning. Poisoning is a very serious threat, actually. Many individuals died on suspicion of poisoning in Turkey, but we don't know certain result because the analyze false effort and the kits don't give to certain results. There are only 4 institutes in Turkey can perform toxicological analysis, and the lack of the labs and experts prevent these traits from being identified. So another one, Shepherds network. The network, we care about it actually because the network that includes not only shippers but also all stockholders, all relevant stockholders in local area. And also we obtained a lot of data. We saw many trades, had a opportunity evaluate them thanks to this network. The shippers network is a sustainable system and a living system actually, because data continues to keep and update itself every day. So future plans, there is much work to be done in the future in Turkey actually. Now investigation of Egyptian vulture breeding areas and populations in Turkey, and investigate and eliminate the threats on breeding grounds areas on the migration route, and expanding local conservation and monitoring networks. So thank you for your attention, and also you can find detailed information, these links on the screen, and also you can access all the data and information studies for Turkey in these links. Thank you for your attention again. See you.
Hello everyone, my name is Razack Moussa Zabeirou. I am a country representative for Sahara conservation in Niger. I would like to share with you the monitoring of Egyptian vulture in the Sahel, overview of results in Niger. Niger is a landlocked country of West Africa. It's located in the transition zone between the Sahelo-Sudanian range and the Sahara Desert. Due to the variability of this ecosystem, it is home of a wide variety of fauna and flora. Out of the 11 African vulture species, 8 can be observed in Niger, and 6 are resident. But unfortunately, we register a progressive decrease of the vulture population in the area. The objective of this monitoring is a better understand their ecology and set up appropriate conservation action. So Sahara conservation started vulture monitoring since 2008, which was been regularly monitoring the nest of lappet vest, ripel, white-headed vulture, Egyptian vulture in the Termit Massif, Candelbuzu Dilia, Garbage Reserve, and Kutus Massif. The monitoring of Egyptian vulture nest started in 2018 with the Pascalis story. The north part of Niger is a migration area for some vulture. Pascalis is a young vulture equipped with a transmitter in Greece during the Life Plus program, the return of the nephron, which unfortunately its migration stopped in Niger, where it was killed by Nigerian hunter while wintering in Niger to be used in ceremony. Since then, Sahara Conservation and other partners have begun intensified monitoring of Egyptian vulture. With 2 nests was identified near the Calais village and a congregation site near the Kabul fund. The Egyptian vulture sharing their habitat with local village. On this photo, you can see some Egyptian vulture and livestock in the same place around the Kabul farm. We continued to research for the new nest and record individually in the area, but the monitoring intensified in 2020 with the arrival of Dr. Volen as part of the New Life project, which has already funded the monitoring of nests in the Kutis in 2018 and 2019. During this mission, we received training on nest research, intensification of monitoring visit, capacity building on bird identification, age determination of vulture based on plumage characteristics and behavior and ecology. I take this opportunity to say thank you to Poland for this capacity building. In total, 11 active nests was registered, about 20 pair, and also other potential nest was recorded in Kutus Massif. The average breeding success is 2 to 3 per season. Although we do not have the necessary means to check all nests, minimum of 3 chicks produced every year since 2020. From 2020 to 2022, we have recorded special fact. On EV13, in the only nest in Kutus Massif, with private breeding succeed in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And in 2022, we recorded 2 chicks in the same nest. This is the first time we recorded this case in Massif, in Kutus Massif. And the second one is a 3 Egyptian Vulture is on EV5. We saw 3 Egyptian Vulture in the same nest, 2 adult and one immature. We have some difficulty in monitoring vulture in Niger. The breeding period coincides with the arrival of the harmattan, which make visibility very poor, very low. With this condition, is very hard to checking the nest. It's very complicated to do monitoring in this condition. The second difficulty is a lack of resources on different levels. Human, with an important lack of capacity, and capacity building take time, lack of equipment, time giving that there is no local capacity to conduct monitoring. Some perspective depending knowledge on vulture population in Niger, expand nest monitoring, fixed GPS transmitter, capacity building, to have a national vulture conservation strategy. It should be very useful for vulture conservation in Niger. Before I finish, I would like to say thank you to all the partners who support us on our activity on vulture monitoring. Thank you very much for your attention.
This is Solomon Mengistu, Avenue Life Project Officer at EWNHS Ethiopia. Ethiopia is an important wintering ground for Egyptian vulture, as it holds sub-resident and the largest congregation of wintering Egyptian vulture in East Africa. From historical perspective, Levy and Mendelssohn in 1989 reported that they observed wintering Egyptian vulture roosting on Telegraph Pylon in a wider area in December 1958 along the old Ethiopia-Djibouti railway between Redawa and the border of Djibouti. Similarly, local people in Aisha also indicated that In the past, there were a large number of Egyptian vultures used to roost on telegraph pylon along the old Ethiopia-Djibouti railway. But currently, they didn't observe any Egyptian vulture roosting on electric pylon along the newly built Ethiopia-Djibouti railway. After 36 years, Sigmundi and Politano in 1996 reported that within 75 kilometers of power lines in Afar region, they counted 1,473 wintering Egyptian vulture. Marev et al. 2014 indicated that a total of 1,424 wintering Egyptian vulture were counted in Afar region. In 2009, 1,400 individuals. In 2010, and 1,082 individuals. In 2013, from Wellington down to Logia, through Samara to Djibouti border. The survey carried out in 2019 and 2020 by New Life project teams indicates that 1,644 wintering Egyptian vulture were counted in 2019 and 1,484 wintering Egyptian vulture were counted in 2020. When we compare this figure with the previous count in 2009 and 2010 and 2013, it is a bit high. The discrepancy might be due to non-territorial floating bird, maybe contributed for double count as the counting takes more days, or higher effort of the team might contribute for higher record. To know the total population of wintering Egyptian vulture in Ethiopia, survey should cover the potential distribution area, Somali region, Borona zone, and Omo National Park areas, including some southern part of Ethiopia. The number of wintering Egyptian vulture clearly declined over years, as the report indicated. But still, Ethiopia is the most important wintering ground of Egyptian vulture in East Africa. Threats to Egyptian vulture in Ethiopia. Power lines and illegal poisoning were identified as the main cause of mortality of Egyptian vulture. Poisoning is considered as the major threat for Egyptian vulture in Ethiopia, like elsewhere in Africa. As reports indicate, 95% of respondents in Somali region use poison chemical against carnivore. Nearly 55% of respondents admitted use of poisoning to tackle the problem with carnivores in Afar and Oromia region during survey that made by New Life project team. The chemicals that are used by the farmers or pastoralists to poison carnivore predators are easily accessed from health office that intended to used against mosquito eradication, or chemicals that are used in agriculture to control pests. This dead body with satellite tag on the back is Boris, a bird that tagged in Bulgaria but died in Ethiopia, in Aisha, around Aisha, after feeding or internal organs that poisoned with chemicals. Below Boris is Wasil, a bird from Jordanos that died after feeding on carcass that poisoned with a chemical, but the local community, after observing satellite tag on the back, they suspect the bird as if it was spying on them, and they burned the bird as a whole with satellite tag. The other is hooded vulture, which found dead around Yangudi Rasa National Park. Power lines is another threat to vultures, including Egyptian vultures. For example, a survey that carried out by New Life project team indicates that 18 dead bird was found along 227 kilometers of power lines, out of which 12 were Egyptian vulture. Kill is also another problem in Ethiopia. where animals killed by vehicle, vultures come to feed on this carcass, and after gorged with the carcass, it's very difficult for the birds to fly away, and they may end up crashed with the car. Ethiopia as a focal area of Egyptian Vulture New Life project. Ethiopia is so important for conservation of Egyptian vulture because there are reports that indicate resident breeding pairs in the rift valleys. Ethiopia holds the highest congregation of wintering Egyptian vulture in East Africa. However, a decline in Egyptian vulture numbers has been reported by many scholars. Ethiopia is growing as a leading of energy sector in sub-Saharan region, which cause a serious problem of electrocution and collision unless mitigation take place. Work done so far in Ethiopia. Mortality factors for Egyptian vulture were collected and dangerous power lines was identified, and we are on the way to retrofit the identified dangerous power lines in Matara and Logia. On days of Egyptian vulture, the cause of death was investigated and reported, and the satellite tag was retrieved. Awareness creation was made or given for local community, rangers, and we supported schools and environmental clubs were built in 2 schools, Matara Primary Schools and Alodora Primary School in Logia. Millions were reached out through participating in Great Ethiopian Run in 2021. We produced and prepared printing material for the main event, leaflet, banners, billboard, mascot, some giveaway materials. We produced and promotional digital materials such as documentaries, interviews, and short films. We work with stakeholders. We communicated with AU, AEP, and signed MOU with AU and AEP and IFCA to reduce loss of Egyptian vulture due to power line generation and power supply. We work closely with municipality on possibility to reallocate or establish dump sites that are far away from energy infrastructure in collaboration with migratory energy projects. Our outsourced work for consultants, and the consultant developed a protocol on the procedure to follow to dispose the deceased dog in a safe way. They also developed a protocol on how to respond to wildlife poisoning incidents, and they recommend an alternative method to use to control carnivore predators too.
Hi everyone, my name is Salisha Chandra and I'm the Vulture Conservation Coordinator for Africa at BirdLife International, presenting to you on a coordinated collaborative action plan for West Africa to address the persecution of vultures. So as we all know, Africa's vultures are probably the most endangered group of birds in the world, declining at rates between 80 to 97%, depending on the species. So 7 of the 11 vultures found across Africa are either endangered or critically endangered. And in West Africa, they appear to be the hardest hit, especially outside of protected areas. The causes for their decline are varied, from indirect threats such as unintentional poisoning, from human-wildlife conflict or feral dog population control, to things such as urban development destroying their roosting nests and sites, as well as direct persecution, including killing for belief-based use, consumption as protein, and as pests and bad omens. Overall, the multi-species action plan identified multiple threats, 2 of which were either critical or high. That is basically killing for belief-based use and unintentional poisoning. And there's been a lot of clear evidence, especially for belief-based use over the last couple of years, that has given us pause for thought and the need to have this West Africa coordinated action plan. It was very clear that human activities are greatly impacting vultures, and that the need of the hour was an action plan in West Africa that both looks within countries, but also across borders, given the trans-African nature of the trade. So thanks to EB-EU Life, CMS Raptors MOU, and IUCN SSC, we were able to put together a workshop to develop a specific action plan. So October 12th to the 14th, we had 35 participants from 13 different countries across West Africa, including CMS national focal points, CITES focal points, ECOWAS, government, academia, and conservation NGOs, to come together to review a threat assessment put together by a bunch of vulture experts from the sub-region to draft a vision and a plan and a governance structure for that plan. And the focus of this action plan was 6 species that are found across West Africa. And this is what we managed in those 3 days. We have a draft vision, which we're going to continue to evolve, that basically looks at revived populations, coexistence, and legal frameworks as key points by 2043. And we also have sort of indicators or better understanding of what, elements of that vision statement mean. Like living in harmony means people are not killing vultures for food trade, for medicine. So these indicators will help us understand how we're moving towards our greater vision. Then taking the threat assessment and the threat system that we discussed, in mixed working groups, we identified priority intervention points. And it came out as 4 key things: the trade or use of vultures, the killing of vultures, cultural beliefs and perceptions, and unintentional poisoning. For each of these, we have goals that we want to reach within them. As you can see, for unintentional poisoning, it's about reducing unintentional poisoning of vultures by livestock owners and farmers. So it identifies, the people, the target audiences, and things like that. Then within that goal, we also developed action points that would help us reach that goal. So now we have draft action plans for each of these goals. And not all the actions were reviewed with timelines set, etc., but most have been, and the remainder will need to be agreed during the plan drafting stage. That will continue on from here. We also devised a draft governance structure, which we thought was important to have accountability for implementation. So as with the action plan and the actions that were described previously, we actually had lead people for each of those action points. Then what we're suggesting is we have national committees for each of the 14 countries that were part of this workshop and this idea. And they would have national action focal points who would report to a multi-stakeholder sub-regional committee that would include people from the traditional healers, from intergovernmental organizations, from government, from NGOs. So we have multiple ideas and at least 4 thematic leads as identified before, with a strategic implementation focal point would link to the MSAP regional coordinator, perhaps. And in terms of next steps, we have a couple of things to do before we have a finalized plan, which we hope for by mid-December. And then hopefully that plan then also gets ratified at the CMS Raptors MOU meeting in 2023, along with a process at ECOWAS and at CITES at the end of November. So that's in terms of finalizing the plan, and then we hope that we will go on to implementation steps. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you for listening to such a fantastic variety of talks covering real breadth of some of the work that's going on in Europe and Africa. It's now time for our questions. I'm going to welcome the speakers to the stage as well. Unfortunately, a couple of our speakers haven't been able to make it today, so the questions that have been asked, we won't be able to put to them directly, but we'll be sure to pass on by email. I was going to kick off with Stephanopoulos' question for Anna about why is drowning a human-caused mortality as opposed to a natural mortality?
No, sorry. It was counted as a non-human-caused mortality. I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding.
Okay, thanks. And I don't know if you can
answered to Stefan. Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, your camera's on. Okay.
And now I am answering to other questions. So in few seconds, other answers will arrive.
We'll come back to you live in a moment to ask those questions. But I was first going to go on to the question about NSAIDs in Albania. If Mirjan's able to talk about those.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, as it was explained in the methodology, we carried out 48 structured questionnaires with livestock breeders, but we didn't find any evidence of use of the dangerous NSAIDs in their treating program, in their usual treating program. This might be discussed also with the fact that not all the livestock breeders were actually fully aware or did know all the details of the drugs that the vets were using. So the way how it works in Albania is that when you have an animal that looks sick, then you call the vet, and then the vet comes, checks it, and then gives the drugs. But most of the shepherds or livestock breeders, they are just not interested to know all the kind of drugs that they use, and they come in different commercial brands. Anyway, another thing which is interesting to mention here is that the livestock herds in Albania are mainly composed from sheep in the territories where the Egyptian vulture is breeding. And what happens usually is that when an animal looks sick, then the shepherd decides to kill it before dying, and to throw the meat to the dogs, or also to consume it if it is something related, like for instance with a breast disease or something else. But still, sorry, I took a bit long. Still, the existence of the dangerous products were actually there are in Albania, and this information we learned from the interviews we did with vet pharmacists. But they are mainly used in larger livestock, such as cows or horses and stuff like this, from what we learned. But still, this needs further investigation. We need to put further efforts to actually have a clearer answer about this. But personally, I think that the NSAIDs are not a potential or a significant threat to vultures in Albania. Thank you.
No, thank you for that comprehensive answer. Moving to the other end of the flyway, Chloe from Sahara Conservation is joining us. So I'm going to ask the question from Professor Şafak about what is the total breeding population in Niger, and are they migratory? And also what height of the nest, as the mountain shown was not high.
Hi, thank you for the question. So yeah, I'm gonna answer for my colleague who's in the field and can't be here today. So unfortunately, I can't really answer that question as we don't know the total number. So the data that were presented were so from Cotus Massif. So we've been working in this area, and we can estimate that the population in this area is max 20 pairs. But we don't have any other data from the rest of the country. So this doesn't mean that there is only 20 pairs maximum in Niger, just that for now, that's the only data we have. So yeah, this was the first part of the question. No, there are residents from what we could observe until now. So we've been going to that same area at different time of the year, and some of the pairs could be seen. Doesn't matter if it was like during summer or during winter. But yeah, obviously it will be nice to be able to put transmitters on those vultures to learn more about the distribution in the country and in the area. And as for the mountain, indeed they're very not super high. They're not even mountains. They're more like cliffs. It's like 100 meters maybe, and some of them you can really easily walk on the top in maybe like less than 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So yeah, no, they're really not that high at all. So yeah, I think that was most of the points in that question.
Yeah, that covers it really well. Thanks, Chloe.
Thank you.
Another question for Italy, for Anna, about how many individuals were released through delayed release in the summer and in the spring. I know you've written it in the text, but I wondered if we could speak about it now as well. And we can't hear you, Anna.
Sorry, we released only 4 individuals in spring, and the others were released in summer.
And in terms
with
of
the delayed
survival,
method, I mean, with the delayed method.
and in terms of the survival comparison between spring and summer,
it's not easy to understand the results because they are few individuals. So I think that we can wait for getting information on the results and on the best technique. We released some of them using, and also in 2017, we released some vultures with a delayed method, and we used different acclimatization structures. We used, in one case, a cage where they spent about 1 month. And between 2018 and 2022, we used a sort of hacking box. So we can, when we'll have more important numbers, we can also evaluate these different the results of the different periods and of the different structure used for the acclimatization, I think.
Thank you, Anna. There's no more questions that have come up on the chat. Unfortunately, the questions for Erick and the talk on the status in France we're not able to answer at the moment. I have a question for Salisha in terms of the next steps for the sort of West Africa plan. When will we hopefully learn more on this initiative?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. So in terms of the next steps, we are hoping to have a completely drafted action plan by mid-December, end of December. In fact, I actually just got the first draft this week. So we're progressing as per plan. And the idea is that people have actually signed up to specific actions. And the whole sort of impetus behind this is beyond, putting an action plan out there, is to actually have these things implemented on the ground as soon as possible for the shorter term things to address the massive declines of vulture populations in those areas. So that's essentially the next steps. Is then we hope we can get funding, to implement some of these actions, whether be it through the JEF process or other options out there. So we hopefully 2023 we will actually start implementing this action plan on the ground.
And a follow-up question that's come in is, how frequently will the action plan be reviewed and updated?
So what we did was we kept it in line with the governance structure of the MSAP. And so while we have a 20-year vision, we're looking at 6 years in terms of interim steps, but then also, those national planning committees would be meeting almost annually or per the actions that were written into the plan. So each of those actions are very, very specific in terms of when do we expect to start and finish them. So some of them are like 2023 to 2024, some of them are 2023 to, you know, the 6-year time frame. So there will be ongoing reviews, you know, annually, as well as in the 6-year sort of process that aligns with the CMS MSAP.
Okay, great. Another one has come in for you, Salisha, I'm afraid, about from Mohammed Habib, saying, is there any report about Africa declines of vultures?
Oh, yes.
Being published.
Yeah, there's a number of reports regarding that, and I'd be happy to share, you know, the declines and what's causing the declines. I can send out a list. There's plenty out there.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question for Vladimir about your talk was very much about the stabilization of the population and kind of what is the best case kind of scenario for when we might start to see an increase in the Balkan population.
Thanks for the question, Jenny. It's actually because we've been into this for like a really long time. Working, the BSP has been working for the last 20 years actively with the species. So until now, we have only seen negatives, like we have lost many pairs throughout the last 2 decades, and also saw many territories abandoned. But it's really nice that in the last 5 years we see the light in the end of the tunnel, because these signs of improvement, like we have seen now some old abandoned territories reoccupied again. We see new pairs formed, and formed by birds that we have rigged like 10 years ago. So it's I would say these are really these tiny strings that keep us on the track and just show us that there is hope, and we can see it now. And it's really inspiring and really cool to just to see the results of your work in the last 20 years. We now see it, but I would say it was a really difficult road so far. We still have a lot to, of course, to do, but hopefully we now can say that we have something behind, like in the back, that supports us. We see the results, and it's we can't wait to see the future, and hopefully new pairs, new territories occupied, and not only, of course, in Bulgaria, but elsewhere across the Balkans. So I would say maybe it's the same for the rest in the team, but this is what keeps us really inspired and enthusiastic about our work.
Couldn't agree with you more, Vladdy. Thank you. And thank you to all our speakers today. I think it was the perfect way to open the conference. So thank you everybody who's logged on this Tuesday morning. Thank you. It's been brilliant to have so many people attending so soon. We finished slightly early, so we're going to have a slightly longer coffee break. So you click on the return to timeline at the top left of your screen, and at the end of the break, which is at 11:40 a.m. East European time, please join the Asia and Middle East session in 20 minutes. So enjoy your break, and we'll see you in 20 minutes. Thanks.